This is the We Built This Business podcast. Today, we're running our how-to mini-series where we speak with a business owner who is an expert in a particular area so that we can learn and do a deep dive and find out more information to help our own businesses. Hello, and welcome back to the We Built This Business podcast. Today, we continue with our mini-series, How To, where we are discussing how to get customers through referrals with Dave Plunkett. Dave is the founder of Collaboration Junkie, a brand dedicated to better referrals. Dave, welcome to the podcast.
Hey Dan, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on, Dave. Really looking forward to today. Dave, can we start off by just talking about your career before Collaboration Junkie?
Yeah, absolutely. So I straight from school, I worked at BT, straight after A-levels in their bio program, looking after kind of multi-million pound contracts, which is kind of cool. Flitted around a few sales roles, did a bit of recruitment for my sins, and then ended up at the Chamber of Commerce, so in a membership role, which I absolutely thrived. And the connection piece with the members and the potential members where I really started to get a passion for community and things. I then ran my own membership organisation, went and worked with someone in partnership to run my own membership organisation, one called Business Scene, where we ran networking events and had a whole load of benefits of business owners. Grew that to a couple of thousand members, almost entirely through referrals.
Wow.
And partnerships. That business then morphed into a business benefit business. So we acted as the SME engagement point for some innovative brands, but some big global players as well, people like Regis and Volvo, and a load of the big insurance providers and payment providers would work with us as the access to the SME market. And we would work with clients who already had a large customer base, business customer base, to provide them with a range of benefits that we created from these big global brands. So the whole business was built around us promoting other people's products to other people's customers. So a partnership model. Reached 1 million business owners along the way, ran, really cut my teeth in kind of partnerships and referrals that way.
Fantastic. So what then inspired you to start Collaboration Junkie?
I got very miserable running that particular business, Dan. It was one that turned into quite a process-driven business. I mean, it was a 6-figure business. It was quite successful. At the end of 2019, I realised that despite a wonderful home life, just 2 kids at that point, I was miserable at work. I'd gone from being in a community and running a community to not having any of that, which now seems insane to me because connection and people and is really what I'm about. So I decided I'd fallen into being a business owner. So I decided to build a kind of a business of my own design and my own brand, looked at what I knew loads about and was passionate about, and it was partnerships and referrals. I was kind of gobsmacked that there aren't more people speaking and educating around the space. And so decided to do it. And the idea was that I would let the old business wind down while the kind of the consultancy education brand built up. But then COVID hit, paid to that, wiped out 95% of the revenue in the old business in a 3-month spell, which made me go all in on what I do now. And I'm kind of glad in a way, because this is what I was supposed to be doing. And the part of the validation of why I picked partnerships was when we were running our membership organisation, when we moved the switch over to the benefit business that was a more partner driven one. We were working with partners to provide the benefits and client partners to provide the audience. Before we even launched that, we had an audience 20 times the size of what we did after 5 years in our membership organisation. And within 5 months of working in this partnership model, we had a monthly recurring revenue 5 times that of, or 2 times that of what we had in the other business that we'd been kind of slogging away at. And so there is this, it was lived experience that made me go, this is something that I feel passionate about and I think others can really benefit from.
Well, it's a fantastic journey into the start of Collaboration Junkie. And also, like you said, it's the core of your values, what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And happiness is everything. If you're doing something that you hate, you're never going to be going too far.
No.
So it's a very interesting way in. Now, let's dial things back and just talk very simply about what is the definition of a referral?
So And there is no there is no dictionary definition as far as I'm aware. They'll say different things. My own definition, and I say this at the start of my workshops and things, is a warm, contextualized introduction from one party to another, to another mutual contact. And for me, there are all sorts of referrals. There are low-level ones. There are people just sharing your content, which is all good stuff. But for me, the stuff that I focus on is meaningful introductions. It's me, and the context doesn't have to be that you've worked with someone. It could just be that you know that there are two people that should be speaking together for a particular reason, and you use that reason when you put those two people together. Sometimes when I make introductions, it's literally, I'm not sure where this introduction is going to go, you two, but this is why I think you two should talk to each other, and at the very least it will be fun. Sometimes an introduction will be, here is a specific problem that I know this person has, and you're the person that can help them with that, right? But it is that context piece. And I'm not saying things that aren't as personal as that aren't worthwhile doing, because they are, absolutely. But the more contextualized and the warmer the introduction is, the more powerful it's going to become. People do business with and refer people to, they do business with people they know, like, and trust, right? Then we've all heard that saying, and a referral doesn't negate that, but it just shortens that whole process.
Using Collaboration Junkie, could you talk through one of your success stories that you've had with one of your clients in using that know, like, and trust?
Yeah, and you know what? I've had lots, and so I'm going to go to the call I was on just before this podcast, actually, because it was a catch-up with a client who finished the work that we did together, because I work as a consultant, a coach, a trainer. That's kind of the space I'm in. I'm not making referrals. I'm giving other people the skill. And we finished the work that we did, end of summer last year. And we've kept it up. And this was a proper full-on catch-up. And it was really good because they'd made a load of progress. They're a personal branding agency right at the very top of their game. And culturally, the two people that lead the business are now asking consistently. They've had, he reeled off kind of 5 high-value clients that they've picked up through referrals in that last year that he doesn't think they'd have got anyway. And then what I really liked was everything I do is around, I think it's fine to have processes behind this stuff, Dan, right? It doesn't mean that it's automated, but it just means that you've got some behind-the-scenes process to remind you to do things, but to your clients and your network, it still feels very personal, right? So that the front-end stuff is personal, but it's fine to have process behind the scenes. And he ran through a couple of different things that they'd done within their own internal processes that were paying dividends, and we're getting really positive feedback on, just to make it. And that's what I really like when I work with people and they ingrain it within their business. So that I talk a lot about building a culture of referrals. I think people think that referrals are, it happens anyway, right? And I think they're maybe a little bit underappreciated because of that. Because when you shift your mindset to be more intentional, and when you back that up with systems and processes in your business to remind you to do it, or to remind your team to do it, so you build this culture of referrals where you consistently get not just introductions, but you get the right introductions. And so for me, that was the most recent one. The most recent success story is always the best one, right? Because it's the one that you're smiling about. So
yeah. Wanted to talk about the processes part that you said that they have implemented.
Yeah.
What sort of processes would you recommend, say, a business that, like ourselves, for example, we don't get any of our business from referrals. All of our business effectively comes from traditional marketing, or call it traditional, but paid advertising on Google, Bing. How would we get into the referral game, being a company that promotes corporate entertainment to other companies?
Yeah. Okay, right. So what I would say is you're the exception, the proves the rule. Like, there's all sorts of stats out there on how many buying journeys start with a referral. And I would argue that maybe some of your business that comes through your direct channels, they found you because someone else has mentioned it. And so there's an argument around how you pick that up. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. So there's for people that are listening now that aren't getting much business through referrals, then you've got a huge immediate opportunity, because you've probably got clients that love you, right? And so there's a bank of goodwill credit that sits there. So one bit of process of whether you are getting referrals or, like you, Dan, it's not part of your processes at the moment. One great way of going back to existing or previous happy clients, a little process you can do, is ask people for a review, or for people that, or go back to people that have given you reviews. Because I get asked quite a lot. I don't know when to ask for a review or when to ask for a referral, and they're not mutually exclusive. Because the best time to ask for referrals is what I call wow moment. It's all the times that your customers are most delighted with you. For a lot of people, the traditional times at the end of a project, but that's not always the best time. I always use when I got my own branding done as an example. I knew it was going to be good because I knew the agency. I'm friends with the owner. I knew it was going to be good. But when I got the first draft back of the concept, I was blown away. Honestly, I get goosebumps when I think about it. They had over-delivered to the max. By the time they had then delivered the actual assets, it was still great, but it wasn't as exciting, because all they did was deliver against my already extremely heightened expectations. It was that earlier moment that really blew me away. And so for any business, I would encourage you to look through your customer journey and think, when do we get really amazing kind of feedback? So for you, Dan, I imagine you have some pretty exciting planning meetings, maybe with clients before events, right? And they're excited at that point. It's about making a note to maybe seed an introduction. Like if they're talking about how fun and how great it is to work with you, kind of seeding that. All being well, we'd love you to kind of help us spread the word, because we really enjoy working with you as well. So think about where you get these heightened levels of response from your clients, and just whatever project management you use, whatever CRM, just put some reminders in there to ask at those points. With this particular client that I was speaking about, they've done something in their onboarding, and they've done it very nicely, but there's a couple of questions they ask that seed the fact that, all being well, there's going to be introductions coming down the line. And they said they've got brilliant feedback from it. The clients, it's done in a really personal way, and actually it gives people a bit more assurance, well, these guys are going to do a good job. If they're already presuming I'm going to be making referrals, then it's giving them more confidence. The thing around reviews, looping it back around, is reviews are a wow moment in themselves, because let's say you go back to someone 6 months down the line of you've been working with them and ask them for a review, they're remembering all the good things that you've done. So they're back in like this heightened state of, Dan and his team are amazing. So at that moment, when someone leaves you a review, a really nice, easy bit to put in your process is, as part of your thank you for someone leaving a review, to ask them for an introduction. Thanks so much. So much for those kind words. It's really great that you think that of us. We love working with clients like you. So while I've got you, quick favour, who else do you know that's like you? And I say who else, actually you want to be a bit more specific. You want to go, do you know any other insert type of business that you're looking for an introduction to that you want? Or next time you hear someone talking about being stuck on ideas for their next corporate team do, I'd love for you to introduce us so that we can help them out. Yeah. And it's about those little bits of process. So the process is behind the scenes, but how you speak to your clients in your network is still very personal. Because you should feel like asking a favor from a friend.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've just given me about 5 ideas just in that period, because I know our customer journey, because I think I wrote it down about 7 years ago, and I think it's still the same process. Yeah. We go through that journey where we have a call, we do the planning, we then send over the invoice, they make payment, they then go past the events team work with them to make sure that everything is going to be delivered. The event then happens, and then for some reason, and I don't know why, I've only just thought about this, we wait 2 days and then we send them a review request. Yeah. And our review take up is very low. And we have only very recently changed this to, on the day of the event, we actually now bring an iPad with us, and we literally just have that plugged straight in. And I think we've already recorded about 7 reviews in the last something like 10 days, just purely from that change. And it's actually thought process change to the piece that you said about thanking them for a review. We thank them on the platform, so for example, Trustpilot or Google, but we don't then say, for example, we'll do an event for AstraZeneca, or we'll do an event for BT, or we'll do an event for Amazon. We don't then say who else in your company.
So I was just about to say internal referrals for big organizations like that. Internal referrals are the easiest ones to do, right?
Yeah.
Can I speak to your person in this department? And also, an interesting one in that scenario, Dan, is for people where they're delivering workshops or they're delivering training or they're delivering experiences like you are. Yes, the person you're dealing with could be a potential referrer to their counterpart in another department, right? But yet, whether it's a learning and development person, if you're doing workshops, or I don't know who your typical contact point is, but also there will be people within the room. Right? I say this quite a lot if I work with trainers. Like, you've got different referrers within your room. You've got your point of contact who's booked you, but then you've got the people that are actually experiencing whatever it is you do, and they can sometimes be a little bit harder to touch if you're doing that live feedback review stuff. And the other thing I would say as well is around those wow moments is, because I get asked this all the time, is about not ruining the moment. There are certain times where if someone's had this major breakthrough or whatever, then asking for introduction there and then is just not going to feel right. You have to kind of make that call yourself. And if it doesn't feel right, if it feels like it's going to ruin the moment, then you just get back in touch with them as soon as you can afterwards and go, brilliant that this happened, kind of thing, and then ask the introduction. And you do it by flattering them. You talk about the fact that you love working with them, you want to work with more great people, right? And so your one of catching reviews on the day, I think, works really well, because people are used to doing that type of thing, and that it's very easy to go back a couple of days later and do the introduction piece off the back of the reviews that you've got. So I think there's a really easy bit of process you could do there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think what we'll do, Dave, is I'll implement that, and I'll let you know how it goes in about a month, and see if I can directly correlate some referrals that we're now getting in. And I think that would be a really good change, and something that, now we've talked about it, makes complete sense. But because we've been running a process for years and years, we've never changed
all
it.
This stuff, none of the stuff on referrals is rocket science. It is the oldest form of marketing, Dan, right? And for most businesses, it's still the most successful. It certainly predates AI-driven messaging, and it predates the written word, right? Word of mouth. But I think because of that, it's underappreciated, because if there was another area of your business that was outperforming every other area, and particularly in a marketing channel, you double down and you do more of it. But even businesses where maybe they get 60% of their leads through referrals, let's say, or 40%, and it's still their biggest source, they'll spend time and money on SEO or PPC or other channels. I'm not saying don't do that, but it's almost because this is such a natural thing, we don't think about actually investing in it and doing it properly. But it is the great thing is that it's all simple things. It's all things that we can do right away. They take cultural shifts, which can be more challenging. It takes a bit more time than handing it over to an external lead gen company. But I believe the results are more worthwhile because they're more personal. And that's why I think it's so powerful.
Definitely. And we've, thinking back to our marketing plan, we've got a 30-page marketing plan that we sign off at the start of the year, and we don't even have a part in there for referrals. Yeah. It's all SEO, PPC, social media. Yeah. It's just, that's the thing. And it's the oldest form of marketing, and that is very powerful. Let's talk about strategy then. So obviously we talked about how I can definitely change my strategy. How do you get business owners to think differently about referrals?
So there's a thing that most people have, which is, I call it the ick, right? And that sometimes people feel just a little bit icky about asking their clients for introduction. But the thing is people the vast majority of people love to make introductions. The world runs on referrals. If you want something in your personal life, whether it be that TV show or restaurant, you ask someone, right? Think about Amazon and Netflix. People who watch this also watch this, right? Like, the world is built on social proof, recommendation, and referrals. And when we make I'll ask you and any of your listeners to think back to the last time they made a business introduction and it went well. It feels good. It feels really good. But for some reason, we get this block when it comes to us asking for introduction. And normally it comes down to fear of rejection or imposter syndrome or one of those things. But people do really love to make introductions. And most people, their clients are talking about them anyway. So if your clients are talking about you anyway, why not get them focused and talking about you in the right way to the right people? So there is a mindset shift around this, which is probably a whole other podcast episode in its own right? But then typically what happens is one of the key ways I get people to get over that hump is if you can make it easier for the person you're asking to make the introduction, then it feels less icky because it feels like you're being less of a burden on them. Because we live in a busy world, right? And so if something isn't easy for someone to do, typically they don't do it. Even if they want to, they put it on their I'll get round to it pile. So you want to make it super, super easy. So there's asking at the right time, and then there's asking for the right thing. And typically people are too vague. They ask for anyone. And anyone doesn't help. I mentioned the membership organization I ran. I use this example quite a lot. We used to run 3 events a week, seeing maybe 150, 200 business owners. And as the host of the event, people would ask me for introductions. And I'd say, yeah, great, sure, who? And they go, oh, we work with any small business owner, thinking that helps me. But it didn't. I just saw a sea of all the people that I know. The minute people were more specific, oh, we're looking to speak to marketing agencies of this size who are this specialism and target this type of people. Yes, there's less chance I know the ideal person right away, but actually it makes it much easier for me because I can go, yeah, and I can be razor sharp. And so there's one of the key things I think people need to do is start to be specific about what they're asking for. And that's either a specific type of business and the role within that business. A specific name, LinkedIn's great for that. If you know someone, then that's the easiest thing in the world to go, hey, Dan, can you introduce me to Jane, please? And this is why context is a really key thing to give someone the context of why you want an introduction, because at the end of the day, when someone introduces you, they are showing you the ultimate sign of trust when someone introduces you, because they are trusting you with their reputation. And so giving someone the context of why you want that help. But the other way of being specific, which often softens referrals to people, is around, I call it situational niching. So it's less about the specific type of business you want. It's more about the specific point in time that a business or an individual is at, right? So it could be you're looking to speak to businesses who have just moved offices, or just taken on their first employee, or just taken on their 10th employee, or have just gone through a rebrand, or there will be certain situations where your product or service is at its most easily sold. And one of the bits of work I do with clients is we really pinpoint what those are, and then we figure out what are our prospects saying when they're in that situation, because they're not saying what's written on your website, Dan, right? Like, people probably aren't looking. Yeah. I haven't looked at your website recently, but they're probably not looking for they're probably not going around going, I wonder if I can find a genuinely proactive and engaged event organizer for my, right? They're not saying those words. What they are doing is when they're out and about in meetings, they're either excited about a future event, or more often people are complaining about something, right? That they don't have enough time for something, or there's a particular problem, or that they've had a bad experience with a competitor, or whatever it may be. And if you can figure out those words your prospects are using when they're in that right point in time for you to be talking to them, then that's how you can be specific in what you ask. Because you can say, hey, Dan, next time you hear someone saying this, then I'd love an introduction because we can help. And it's just a different way of mixing it up. And so that kind of strategy around when do we go direct and when do we plant these future seeds is one of the key pieces. But really, really having an understanding of what you're asking for is where you turn referrals from something organic and chance-based to something that's a strategy that can genuinely scale your business.
Yeah. And the cliche is there's riches in niches,
yes.
Isn't it? And I think the result of that is it needs to be niched everywhere. And, I've definitely made that mistake in the past where I'm like, I'm just looking for business owners. That's who I need to sell to.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, are you selling to the business owner of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, or are you selling to business owner of the local electrician company who has 3 or 4 employees? And yeah, it's understanding your market, isn't it? And who your messaging is going out to is the key. You talked a little bit about social media. I just wanted to kind of touch on LinkedIn and, LinkedIn being used for referrals. I know LinkedIn's growing and a lot of people are, getting a lot of business through it. How powerful is LinkedIn as part of a referral strategy?
Used in the right way, really powerful, because you can see who people are connected to. Now, depending on the space you're in, depends on how well you know your connections, right? Back in my Chamber of Commerce days, I personally knew every single person I was connected to and used that as a tool for the members. If someone was a member, that they could look through my LinkedIn profile and I could make very personalized introductions. Now I share a lot of content on LinkedIn. I've got 9,000 or 8,000 something odd, right? Obviously, I don't know all those personally. But you can see, obviously, who engages on people's posts and all that sort of thing. And if someone looked through my profile and wanted an introduction, I would make it anyway, because connected with that, as long as the context was right, and I trusted the person that was asking me, I'd probably do it anyway, because it's LinkedIn and we're connected for a reason. But I would add some context in my introduction that here it is. So it is a powerful tool. One of the things you can do as well is if you sent me a LinkedIn message going, "Hey Dave, I see you're connected to this person and this person. I'd love an introduction, if that's okay, because," and you gave me the reason why. As long as those two people weren't wildly disparate, I could see a commonality between the two. Then one of two things happens, even if I don't know either of those people and didn't want to make an introduction. The first one is because you've done the legwork, you've not just asked me, you've made it as easy as I possibly can to make an introduction. I feel more obliged to try and help you, even if those two connections aren't people I can make an introduction to. But by being specific, you've also trained me as to who a good introduction is. So I'm much more likely to go, "Oh, Dan, you know what? I don't really know those two people. But I do know this person who's quite a lot like them. Would that be a good introduction?" And you go, yes, it would be, Dave. Thank you very much, kind of thing, right? And on you go. So it is quite powerful for that, absolutely. I think the lower level of referrals, of like just getting people to share your content and things, or share your event if there's things worth it, that is still getting people. If someone shares your content, for example, or an event that you're running, whatever it may be, they are still trusting you with a little bit of their reputation. So it absolutely gets them one step closer to maybe specifically referring you. So I think it's like all things, it's a piece of the puzzle, and it's about using it in the right way.
I've never actually ever thought of asking someone else to introduce me to someone on LinkedIn. I've never thought of that before. But yeah, when you find someone and you're like, "Oh, I'd like to talk to them," but they're not a connection, but you can see who is their connection.
Yeah.
And if you know them, it's worth outreaching. And I've never thought of that before in my life. So it's definitely a way in.
Yeah, and a surefire way to do it is to look at who's commented on their post, because then you know that they know them. Well, there's a much higher chance. If someone's got 5,000 connections, then they're not going to know all of those, right? But if there's people, so if it's someone that you know already and you see someone comment on their post and you're like, "Oh, that's a good contact for me," they're the perfect people to do it. So.
Yeah, very powerful. What questions, Dave, do you get asked regularly?
Oh, this is a good one. So the review or referral request is a big one. The other biggest one, though, and to be fair, actually, we're, half an hour in, so I'm sure there are going to be people that are listening to this going, "Oh, he hasn't mentioned how to reward referrals," right? This is definitely the biggest one. And the ick factor comes in around what you do around rewarding referrals. There was a brilliant book called Drive by Dan Pink, and actually someone signposted me to the TED Talk, which is obviously much shorter, that talks about a similar thing, and it talks about extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Most of us are intrinsically motivated, and so that means we do something because we want to. And if you over incentivize that at the outset, then it can actually put people off doing it. So if you go out to your clients who already love you and be more than happy to help you and go, hey, please refer us. If you do, we'll give you this thing. You can actually turn them off. You can make people go, you can make them feel icky. You can make them go, oh, I was going to refer you anyway. Now you've turned it into a sales thing, right? Now, some people are extrinsically and reward-based motivated. If your audience is full of salespeople, or your audience is full of commission-driven people, or whatever it may be, or you're a growth-driven business, then maybe it's appropriate to have a more formalized piece. But for most people, your clients will refer you anyway if you ask. Now, I always say it's like you should still say thank you, and I always think you should still reward people. But personal for me is way better. I always say the purpose of a referral reward, if it turns into business, is to raise an unexpected smile. So I've referred someone to you, it's turned into business, Dan, and you've said thank you at the point, and then a week later, something drops in through the post, right? And I pick up the phone, Dan, thank you so much. There was no need to do that, but thank you is really appreciated. That, for me, is the post-reward piece, I think, is the way to do it. Exceptions to that, I suppose, are things like with your clients, if there's stuff that they already want that you can just give them more of, then that tends to work. Like I'm part of a mastermind community, and if we refer, they know that people will refer them anyway because they like them, but they reward it on the back end. Like if you refer someone in and they stay for 3 months, you get a month's free membership. And that's fine. It doesn't feel icky because I already want that thing. And it's positioned as a thank you. It's positioned as a thank you for taking the time to do it rather than the reason I'm doing it in the first place. And so that's a big one that people get hooked up on. And again, could probably be a podcast in its own right because it's such a grey area. So
Love that. Well, Dave, I think we've learned a hell of a lot already. I think, like you said, we've already got probably 2 other podcast episodes we can do from this. So we'll definitely look at further mini-series, I think, diving deeper into the referrals. Now, people who have obviously listened to you, feel the enthusiasm, the knowledge that you share, how can they find out more about you and where can they get in touch?
Okay, so Dave Plunkett on LinkedIn. Like my handle is Dave, is just Dave Plunkett, no numbers or anything like that. And there aren't many Dave Plunkett Collaboration Junkies on LinkedIn anyway, or collaborationjunkie.com. So they're the 2 spots to kind of find out a little bit more about what I do.
Lovely. Well, thanks so much, Dave, coming on the podcast. We really enjoyed talking about how to get customers through referrals today. And I'm sure there'll be lots of more questions coming in that we can ask you for further episodes, as I think we drill down into more niches to do with referrals.